Welcome to Pixel by NETSTAIRS weekly event. I'm Ahmad Moradi. At NETSTAIRS, we focus on what we call ICE. This is a program that we tend to inform, communicate, and educate our clients with the content and practical use that would empower clients, colleagues, and industries, including governments, to gain value-added benefits from deploying real-time communications as the genesis of their business. After all, we all thrive and communicate through communication, so real-time becomes pivotal. Today, it is my honor to present our featured guest, Dr. Luis G. Flores, who is a respected international authority in the areas of strategic planning and corporate management. Dr. Flores holds a Ph.D. from Texas Tech University in the area of strategic management, as well as MBA from ESAN. He's a professor at UNIU, Northern Illinois University, who brings from 1971, years of experience with 25 years of professorship, management, and teaching undergrad and MBA courses. Dr. Flores has consulted a wide range of companies from Fortune 500 to small businesses. Through strategic planning efforts, assisting managers, breaking paradigms, strengthening leadership, developing teamwork, and creating effective channels of communication makes Dr. Flores a leading industry expert. He has been recognized and facilitated more than 80 strategic retreats, and he has led many seminars and conducted many consulting in more than 20 countries. Dr. Flores, large clients such as Hamilton Life, Honeywell, Household International, and many other smaller companies. And he's been an author of numerous studies, reports, and articles that has been credited for breakthrough in strategic planning. And Dr. Flores combines years of doctoral research and practical hands-on application with Fortune 500 mid-sized companies and nonprofit. So I would like to introduce him, and let me turn over the mic to Dr. Flores. Dr. Flores, the podium is yours.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon, I guess, to everybody, right? It's a pleasure for me to share a presentation that I did for the International Annual Association of Strategic Planning. And you're going to find here, I hope, things that you have never seen before, because what I found was something that I had never seen before myself. So the presentation was made in an hour and a half, so I got to do this presentation in half an hour now. So I will address you to look at the slides, certain slides that they are either too complex or too it will take too much time to present, and also that you can really understand it yourself. So let's get to it. Next. There are things in life that applies not only to strategic planning, but to everybody. And I like to remind us that it doesn't matter how much we're running if we're in the wrong road or in the right road, I guess. And I have two main things next. Two main things in this presentation. One is what I call structural problems in the strategic planning industry, and the other is transformative strategic planning. In other words, the first one is we have a mess here. The second is how we can cure this mess. Next. Let me address first the strategic planning industry, and I think there are four different characteristics that I'm going to be sharing with you. The major characteristics of the industry, structural problems of the industry, barriers to knowing, and what are the valid expectations of senior managers for a strategic plan. The first thing is bad news. We tend to believe that we know what strategic planning is, but in my journey of teaching and doing consulting, I have found that really we don't know what we're talking about, and I'm going to explain why. But the essence of the problem is that the industry is fragmented, There are like a tribal people that, they do different things in strategic planning, and one doesn't know what the other does, and one is terrible, the other is bad, some of them are good, but it's evolving, and we are learning more and more and more, and I might share some ideas along that line. It's diverse again, you go to a company and they give you a proposal, and the proposal will be different than the other company, and they are not checks and balances. I mean, it's wild. Next. And trying to make it easy to understand, the structural problems are caused by the nature of the industry itself, and I'm going to share with you some ideas about the concept of a strategy, the customers of a strategy, the function of a strategy, the role of the consultants, the availability of training, and the secrecy, and also we'll share with you what are you supposed to expect from a good strategic intervention. The nature of the concept. I start my seminars by asking participants to define a strategy. And boy, do I get different definitions. And why? Because it's a highly abstract construct. We think that that is very easy, but then when you start talking, okay, and how do we put it, how long is it, and who does it, and all those kinds of things, it becomes very, very, confusing. There's limited knowledge. Most of the schools give only one course in strategy, and the focus of the course is on strategic analysis, but not the organizational processes and mental processes that people needs to go to end up agreeing on a given strategy. There's partial training, and there's also multiple interpretation of the same thing. And finally, evaluation methodology. People don't evaluate the strategy. They evaluate how well the strategy is being implemented. But the problem with a strategy is that the benefits of a strategy begin to appear 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years after you do the plan. So there is no methodology. Well, there is a couple of methodologies, but nobody uses methodology really to assess the things that they really should be assessing. Next. So let's start with problems with customers. When I give also talks to senior management, I ask them what they expect from the strategy. And again, different expectations, and many of them totally out of the blue, or out of the central point that we want to reach. So there are unclear expectations. When I ask them how many, consultants they have interview and that kind of stuff, no. Do they go to seminars to see the new things in a strategy? No, they know, because obviously if you're a CEO, you know everything. And again, lack of evaluation. Next. The access to customers. Who has access to the CEOs? The contacts, people they know. So they limit the universe from which they can actually get help. They also go to people they trust, accounting companies, and accountants are pretty good in analysis, but when you talk about human behavior or organizational process, they say, what? And they go to universities as well, but universities are also full of people that know the theory, but they don't know the practice. Next. What kind of consultants do you have? Lots of them, they all do different things. The focus, I think, is something that I can spend a minute talking to you. Doing versus learning. I have beautiful examples of things that has happened that are terrible in strategic planning. In Dubai, I was teaching a seminar, and one gentleman came to me and said, Dr. Flores, we pay $900,000 for consulting in strategic planning. This is what they gave me. It was a book, and now we don't know what to do with it. That doesn't work. So they don't know really how to select people. And again, you have all kinds of consultants that do the same thing. This chart, you can see the rest of it because it's very well, spelled out. Something that is also very important is the head of planning. You might have a person that is doing the strategic plan and is running your department of planning, but you might have something very wrong. So let's check it out for a second. There's no common standards on what people, head of planning does. I mean, some of them do something, some of them do something else. There's no shared clarity in what they are supposed to do. There is no specific requirements. I have seen in the internet, we're looking for a head of planning that has to have a bachelor's degree. For God's sake, bachelor's degree is like saying, I want a student in biology to do a heart operation. Doesn't work. There's a lot more needed to do a strategic planning. No specific, well, that I already, not effective training, because there is an effective training. The training is based more in tools to do a strategic plan, but guess what? When you use a tool, you are limiting yourself. You don't open your brain to all kinds of ideas. There's no effective feedback, and there's no scientific evaluation again. Next. So I conceptualized this slide that I think I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because it's very important. And these are strings, so you won't have your head of planning fitting in the string. Well, maybe sometimes. But there are two types of head of planning. I call one gatekeeper and the other explorer. And the gatekeeper is a person that is close-minded, arrogant, insecure, feels threatening, secretive, retains power, is very conservative, and his focus is on self-preservation. This type of head of planning, is dangerous because they keep all possible kinds of information about the strategic planning from the senior management team. They control it and they do what they know only, and obviously what they know is not too big. I had cases, several cases of students or former people in my seminars talking to the head of planning and saying, hey, you need to talk to Dr. Flores and so on and so forth. Well, guess what? Weeks pass by and they don't call. And I don't mind if I go there, I present something and they say, well, no, this is not for us. But not wanting to know is a very clear a symptom that you have a gatekeeper rather than an explorer. And what is an explorer? And I work with those people, head of planning that are open-minded, they're humble, self-confident, they're transparent, they're team building, they're curious, and they seek new ideas. And they're there. They're looking for things all the time. The problem is that you don't know where they are. But obviously, if you have an explorer, you have a winning proposition, you have a gatekeeper, you have somebody that is freezing your progress. Next one. Secrecy. That was one of the most interesting discoveries when I started working in industry coming from academia. Again, we go to not everybody has a deep understanding of strategic planning and worse, that how it should be developed. Most people in planning believe that they should be developed by them, because they are the one who know, but that's not true. You'll never get the commitment of a management team if the head of planning is done by somebody else but them. Most people agree that the strategic planning is the formulation and implementation of the strategy. But the problem is when you start saying, okay, how is this strategy formulated and how is it implemented? And we go back again. If it is formulated by a group of people and implemented by somebody else, that somebody else is going to have 20,000 questions in their mind. They will doubt what the formulation people have done. They will find all kinds of holes, and they will go into what is called, I think it's a passive-aggressive behavior, which means they do things, but they will not do things, completely fast, and they drag their feet in the process. Barriers to knowing. One of them is because there is lack of knowledge. Academicians have not really found the issue that there is progress. The kind of management is the most important association for researchers and professors. We're having a meeting in Chicago, and one of the sessions is going to be how we can do things to help practitioners. So and I am the person in charge in the Association of Strategic Planning to get in touch with university to try to form links. There is an interest in getting this done. So there's lack of knowledge. There's lack of opportunities. There are no good seminars. I have seen the seminars. I pulled out yesterday the seminar the University of Chicago presents only the formulation piece. Nothing about the internal intellectual things that have to happen for people to understand and commit to the plan. There is also consultant self-interest. We already talked about that. You know, they don't want to share anything. They don't want to teach anything, and the B planning self-interest. Next. Now, what can you expect from a planning process? Well, this is very important because you should have this as you check, you know, a list to see if any consultant or your head of planning is offering what is here. You need to end up with a management team that have a very strong sense of purpose, a very sharp management focus, a team that is able to think out of the box, a team that is committed deeply to the strategic plan, a team that has come together as a really team, not just a group, and moving forward, that is learning and evolutionary, and that is institutionalized and becomes part of the way that your company works. Yes. Next. Now let's move to the next thing. What is the solution? Or one of the solutions. I don't want to be arrogant and say that is the solution. And I want to share several things in here. One is the development of this approach. The second is the requirement of this approach, the changing focus of strategic planning, the focus on organizational processes, the fundamental proposition, mindset development, and expected results. Next. This approach is very interesting because it was born of a very unusual fact or unusual event. I was teaching strategic planning for a long time, and in my early years of teaching, I concluded, and I was thinking about it, that my role as a professor was not to teach the tools of strategic planning only, but also to teach students to think strategically. And in that process, I developed a methodology to help students think strategically. And one day, I got a phone call from a gentleman saying that he was the head of the advisory board of my university, and so that was an important person for me. And I said, "What can I do for you?" And he said, "Well, I am the member of the advisory board of your university, but I'm also the controller of Household International." Household International is a huge was, because now the mergers and acquisitions have changed the many companies, the controller of the entire organization. And they wanted somebody to, guess what, to help them to think strategically, you know. So they interviewed me and grilled me and all that kind of stuff. And at the end, they asked me, "So can you do this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I've never done it." And they came back with a Fortune 500 mentality. "Well, guess what? You're going to do it," you know. And they charged me with that project. And and this is where the hand that the person that is drowning, you know, because I felt that, you know, what do you mean teach the whole organization to think strategically? But the two persons that were leading the company came from Citicorp, and they knew exactly what they wanted. So they say, "Don't worry, we're going to help you." and this is my Coast Guard, right, coming to the rescue. And they told me, we want a process that is simple, that has involvement, meaningful involvement, that creates strategic thinking, that produces learning, that is reusable, that is self-fueling. Self-fueling means that every event that you do has to be so successful that the entire group wants to keep on going. So they cannot be disillusioned with these things. And it has to be enjoyable. It has to be fun, let's talk, and it went very well. The thing is that they said, we need to move. So in 60 days, we're going to get the management team from around the world, 60 people, and you have 4 days to manage the meeting, get it ready and all that kind of stuff, and move on, Yes, sir, of course. Next one.
Dr. Flores, which slide number are we on?
We are in slide 18.
Okay, great.
Next. Okay, and the main message is that the emphasis of doing the plan shifted to the strategic planning process. It's not what you do, obviously what you do, but it's also how you do it. Next. And this is the diagram that I put. People think that the strategic formulation should be something, and strategic implementation should be something else. The proposal is no. You have to have a process that allows them to connect together for things to work. Let's go to 20. And I won't spend too much on this, but organizational processes are the repetitive patterns of how managers do their analysis, decisions, and actions with managing organization. And if you don't have a good process, you won't have good decisions. They determine how management activities take place, and thus the quality and quantity of decisions